Chapter 1, Genius No More. Do Ji Li, Third Stage. Facing the magical testing monument as it displayed the 5 big hurtful words, the youth stood expressionless, lips curled in a small self-ridiculing smile. He tightly clenched his fist, and because of the strength used, his slightly sharp fingernails dug deep into the palm of his hand, bringing brief moments of pain. Xiao Yan, Do Ji Li, Third Stage. Rank, low. Beside the magical testing monument, a middle-aged man looked at the results on the monument and announced them with an indifferent voice. Immediately after the middle-aged man finished speaking, without much surprise, the people in the square started a commotion, ridiculing him. Third stage? As expected. This genius has once again taken a step back. AI, this piece of trash really disgraced his entire clan. If his father wasn't the clan leader, this kind of trash would already have been kicked out of the clan. Nobody would care about him, and there wouldn't be such a thing as leeching off the clan home. How could the once famous genius of Wu Tancheng fall to become like this over the past few years? Who knows? Maybe he did something unforgivable and caused the gods to get angry. The ridicule and laughter directed at him came from all directions and resonated in the motionless youth's ears, as if piercing his heart. He could not help but breathe heavily. He raised his head to reveal a delicate and immature face, jet-black eyes glancing past the people of his age that ridiculed him as well. His lips, which were previously full of self-ridicule, turned to fill with bitterness instead. These people, were they always this cold? Or was it because 3 years ago they smiled humbly to congratulate me, and now they wanted to take it back? Smiling bitterly, Xiao Yan turned around and silently walked back to the group of people. His lonesome figure seemed to be unable to fit in with the surroundings. Next up, Xiao Mei. Hearing the tester's voice, a teenage girl quickly ran up from in the crowd. The moment she got on stage, the murmurings and discussions quietened down and every pair of fiery eyes were locked on her face. The teenage girl wasn't more than 14 years old. Although her beauty wasn't immediately evident, her small childish face combined with her innocence captured the attention of the audience. She quickly stepped forward and put her tiny hands on the black stone monument. She then closed her eyes gently. As the girl closed her eyes, the monument shined brightly once again. Do Ji Li, 7th Stage. Xiao Mei, Do Ji Li, 7th Stage. Rank, high. Yeah. Hearing the tester read out the result, the teen girl smiled proudly. TSK, 7th Stage Do Ji Li. How impressive. At this rate, in 3 years she'll be named a true doja already. She really fits the name of the clan's seedling. Hearing the unanimous praise coming from the crowd, the girl's smile turned even wider. Vanity, the temptation that so many girls are unable to resist. While chatting with her fellow sister members, her line of sight weaved through the surrounding people and landed on a lonesome figure away from them. Furrowing her brows for a while, she finally decided against walking over. Between the two of them was already a huge gap. Looking at Xiao Yan's performance these past few years, by the time the adulthood ceremony comes, he would only be able to place at the lower-tier clan member ranks. She, however, with her brilliance, would become the clan's very important and thus well-nurtured fighter. There would be no limit to her future. An inexplicable sigh emerged from her. Xiao Mei thought back to the youth from 3 years ago, bursting with energy and pride. At 4 he started practicing, and at 10 he achieved the 9th stage Do Ji Li. At 11 he broke the 10th stage Do Ji Li barrier and condensed his Do Ji Chi Zu successfully. He became the youngest doja in the clan since the past 100 years. At that time, his self-confidence as well as immeasurable power attracted countless young teens, which of course, included Xiao Mei. However, the path of a genius was always winding. 3 years ago, this genius youngster whose fame reached the absolute top, received what could possibly be the cruelest blow. The hard work he put into accumulating and condensing the Doji Chi Zu over the past 10 years had, in just one night, vanished into nothingness. All the Doji Li in his body slowly dissipated with time, and instead, pity for him grew. As a result of losing his Doji Li, his physical strength decreased as well. From the position of a genius, in one night he fell below the average person. This kind of blow made the youth lose his will to carry on training. The reverence once associated with this lad had slowly changed into disdain and ridicule. Standing so high up, and falling right down, this kind of fall might just be one that he could never recover from. Next, Xiao Sun Air. Among the commotion, the tester's voice sounded yet again. Following the calling of this highly reputable name, the group of people quietened down immediately. Every single gaze turned. At the center point of attention was a teen girl clad in a purple dress, elegantly standing there. Her calm, tender and immaculate face was completely unaffected by the many gazes of the crowd. Her calm and indifferent attitude could be compared to the blooming of a lotus. At such a young age, she already had the air of a refined lady. It would be hard to imagine how she would affect the city and the nation once she grew up. This purple dress girl, if compared to Xiao Mei in terms of beauty, was clearly several leagues above. It's no wonder the crowd would have this kind of actions. Taking small, graceful steps, the girl named Xiao Sun Air walked up in front of the stone monument. She stretched her small hand out, and the purple sleeve mixed with black and gold threads fell down her arm, revealing a delicate snow-white wrist. She touched the monument lightly. In the silence, the monument shone once more. Doji Li, 9th stage. Rank, high. Looking at the words on the monument, the entire square fell into deep silence. She really reached the 9th stage, how frightening. The position of the youngest high rank in the clan has been taken, without a shred of doubt, by Miss Sun Air. After the silence, several teens couldn't help but wolf whistle, their eyes full of respect and awe. Doji Li was essential towards being a doja. Doji Li is split into 10 different stages, and when the body acquires 10 stages of Doji Li, it can better condense the Doji vertex, becoming a well-respected doja. In the crowd of people, Xiao Mei stared at the purple dress girl in front of the monument with a little jealousy. Looking at the results on the monument, the middle-aged tester who would normally be indifferent smiled, faced her and congratulated her. Miss Sun Air, half a year later, you should be able to condense the Do-Chi vortex. If you succeed, you'll be a doja at the age of 14, the second person to do so in the Xiao clan. Of course, the second person. First would be the fallen genius, Xiao Yan. Thanks. The teen girl nodded her head lightly, her calm face showing a little happiness because of his praise. She quietly turned, and in the midst of the crowd's attention, slowly walked to the downtrodden youth in the back of the group. Brother Xiao Yan. At the youth's side, the teen girl stopped. She faced Xiao Yan and bowed respectfully. Her beautiful and gentle face showed an elegant smile which would make the surrounding girls jealous. What qualifications do I have right now for you to call me that? He faced the girl that could be considered the clan's radiant pearl and said bitterly. She, after being downhearted for an extremely short while, continued to maintain her respect. Brother Xiao Yan, you once said to Sun Air before, to take on anything, one must first be able to let go. One is only truly free when he can take on and let go easily. Xiao Sun Air said gently, her smiling face full of warmth. Truly free? I only know how to say it. Look at me now, do I look like a free person? This world wasn't mine to begin with. Xiao Yan laughed at himself, saying dispiritedly. Facing Xiao Yan's somber mood, Xiao Sun Air's fine brows furrowed a little, and she said seriously, Brother Xiao Yan, though I don't know what's happening to you, Sun Air honestly believes that you will stand again and reclaim your lost glory and respect. She stopped for a moment, her white tender face reddening a little. Back then, there were a lot of people who were attracted to you. Hearing the girl's wholehearted truth, he laughed awkwardly but didn't say anything else. Other people would be swayed by it, but he did not have the qualifications nor the mood. Instead, he silently turned around and walked away from the square. Standing still and facing the lonely back of the youth, she hesitated for a while before chasing after him and walking side by side with him. Meanwhile, from behind a jealous wolf whistle sounded.
Chapter 2, Do-Chi Continent. The moon was like a silver plate and the stars filled the sky. At the summit of the cliff, Xiao Yan lay on the grass and in his mouth was a strand of green grass. He chewed it slightly and let the bitterness spread into his mouth slowly. He raised his white palm and put it in front of him, blocking the moon and only letting some moonlight pass through the gaps between his fingers. He looked at the giant circular silver moon in the sky. Thinking back the testing in the afternoon, Xiao Yan sighed lightly. He lazily pulled his hand back and rested both hands on his head. He looked absent-minded. 15 years already, huh? A soft voice that suddenly was spat out from the young teen without any warning. In Xiao Yan's mind, there was a secret that only he himself knew: he wasn't a person from this world. More accurately, his soul wasn't from this world. He was from a deep blue star called Earth. As for unexplainable mystery of why he would be here, he himself had no clue. However, after living here for some time, he slowly realized, he passed through to the other side. As he grew older, he slowly came to understand bits and pieces of this continent. This continent was called the Do-Chi continent. On the continent, there wasn't many tales of magic users and their effects, but rather, Do-Chi was the main star. On this big piece of land, the training of Do-Chi had become commonplace after the hard work of countless individuals who continued to train beyond generations, expanding the knowledge surrounding Do-Chi all the way to the top. Do-Chi and mankind are one and the same in everyday life, and as such, Do-Chi is extremely important in the continent. It could be called irreplaceable. As the number of levels in Do-Chi kept increasing, so did the number of ways to train it. Some were better than others, as expected. After going through a system of analysis, the Do-Chi rankings in the Do-Chi continent got split into 4 different classes: Tian, Di, Xian, Huang. And every class was split further into beginner, medium and high ranks. The Do-Chi techniques you learned also determined how strong you would be. For example, if a person practiced a Xian class medium rank technique, he would naturally be stronger than a person who practiced a Huang class high rank technique. In the Do-Chi continent, to differentiate the strong from the weak, there are 3 criteria that need to be looked at. First, and also the most important, is your natural body strength. If a person only has a 1-star level of strength, even if he practiced the Tian class high rank techniques, he wouldn't be able to beat a Huang class combat master. Next is technique level. If 2 people of the same innate strength were to battle, the one with the better technique will obviously win. Lastly is Do technique. Do technique is a special kind of skill that is used when controlling Do-Chi, and in the land of Do-Chi, Do technique is also separated into Tian, Di, Xian, Huang. Do-Chi in the continent speaks for itself, but Do technique is different. Almost everyone starts off with a Do technique class of Huang. If you wanted to learn more advanced control skills, you would need to join a sect or enroll in a Do technique school. Of course, there are some who, by chance, manage to learn the skills that others before have left behind, or those who have compatible Do techniques. For these people, their combat level might be slightly higher than normal. Relying on these 3 aspects, you can determine who is strong and who is weak. All in all, if you manage to learn a high-level Do technique, the benefits in the future would be enormous. However, high-level Do techniques are really hard to come by as a commoner. Those that are open to the public are normal, Huang class techniques. For those bigger clans or small sects, Xian class techniques are the norm. For example, in Xiao Yan's clan, their highest level technique was only practiced by the clan leader, Lion Wind Strike. It was a wind-style Xian class medium rank Do technique. Above the Xian class would be the D class, but this kind of high-level techniques might only obtainable by a powerful country-like organization. As for the Tian class, in 100 years, it hasn't appeared once. As previously stated, commoners trying to get a high-level technique is like trying to climb a mountain without gear. However, nothing is absolute. In the world of Do Chi, there are thousands of clans. In the north, there are people referred to as unbeatable. They fused their soul with wild animals and became barbarians. In the south, there are smart and talented high-class beast spirit clans, and even the strange and infamous underworld people. Because of the vastness of the continent, there are bound to be cases of nameless figures who, by chance, happened upon a miracle that made them strong. Or, perhaps, there might be people who are bound by fate to discover strong techniques. In the land of Do Chi, there is one famous sentence: if you find yourself stuck in a ditch or forsaken by the world, don't panic. Take 2 steps forward and maybe you'll find yourself stronger than ever before. Of course, though this line isn't false, in the 1,000 years of history in the continent, there aren't many stories of people getting strong by random chance. As a result of this, every day, there are countless individuals who try to break through and discover a new skill or technique, but instead only return with a broken hip or leg. All in all, this continent is full of mysteries and miracles. To access the vault of secret Do Chi techniques, you must at least be a full-fledged Do Zhe to meet the basic requirements. For Xiao Yan, it seemed so far away. Xiao Yan spat the grass out and quickly stood up and made a maniacal face. He faced the sky and shouted, "God damn it! How could I be played for a fool like this?" In his past life, Xiao Yan was a mediocre, average commoner. Wealth, fame and beauty seemed to run parallel to his life, never intersecting it. Then, when he came to this continent, Xiao Yan was shocked. Because of a second set of experiences, his spirit became much stronger than the average person. It must be known that in the Do Chi continent, your spirit is decided upon at birth. Maybe, as you grew older, it would strengthen a slight bit, but there is no known technique to train your spirit to be stronger. It was Xiao Yan's strong spirit that gave him his talent, as well as his fame as a genius. For an average person, if they were told that they could be a genius, there's little doubt that they would claim their fame and live the high life. For the run-of-the-mill person like Xiao Yan, when he started training his Do Ji Chi, the temptation of being able to rise to fame would be unbearable. Of course he wouldn't choose to stay hidden and continue to train. If there wasn't any accident, Xiao Yan could perhaps grow even more with his genius label. Unfortunately, at 11, his label was stolen from him and in one night, a genius turned into a piece of trash. After shouting at the top of his lungs for a while, Xiao Yan finally calmed down and his face turned calm again. No matter how angry he got, he wouldn't be able to get his strength back. Bitterly shaking his head, Xiao Yan felt miserable. He had no clue what happened to his body, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. His spirit was growing as he aged, as expected. His absorption of Do Ji Chi was also extraordinarily fast. It was faster than the strongest fighter from a few years back. All these factors should have meant that Xiao Yan was a natural genius, but all the Do Ji Chi that he absorbed seemed to be completely gone. His self-esteem took a big hit and he could only feel depressed. Taking another deep breath, Xiao Yan raised his hand. On his finger was a black ring of simple design. The material used to make it was unknown. On it were some markings as well. This was the only present his late mother gave to him before she passed. He started wearing it since the age of 4 and even now, 10 years later, he was still wearing. It was a precious gift from his mother and Xiao Yan treasured it dearly. He rubbed the ring and said bitterly, "These few years, I've really let mother down, huh?" Sighing deeply, Xiao Yan quickly stood up and turned around, saying to the black figure from the woods, "Father, why have you come?" Though his Do Ji Chi was only 3rd stage, his spiritual awareness was akin to that of a 5-star Do Zhe, perhaps even better. While thinking about his mother, he felt a sudden disturbance from the woods. Yen air. It's already quite late. Why are you still here? From within the cluster of trees, after a moment of silence, a tender voice sounded. The trees shaked a little and a middle-aged man jumped out, face smiling widely. His eyes were locked on his son under the moonlight. The middle-aged man was wearing an expensive-looking gray tunic. He walked with pride and dignity and his face showed it. He was the Shao clan leader, as well as Shao Yan's father, a 5-star dosher, Shao Zhan. Father, why have you not returned to rest yet? Facing the middle-aged man, Shao Yan's smile thickened. Although he had another set of memories, when he was born, the person before him treated him as with love and care. When he lost his power and spirit, the love did not lessen but grew instead. This poked at Shao Yan's heart, making Shao Yan recognize him as his father. Yen heir, are you still thinking about what happened this afternoon? Taking a big step forward, Shao Zhan smiled again. Haha, what's there to think about? It's within my expectations. Shao Yan shaked his head and forced a smile. Looking at Shao Yan's tender face, Shao Zhan let out a sigh. The both of them sinked into silence for a while, before Shao Zhan said, Yen heir, you're 15 now, aren't you? Yes, father. Just one more year, and you have to attend the adulthood ceremony, Shao Zhan said. Yes, father. Only a year left. Shao Yan's fist clenched for a while before he replied. He was extremely clear what the adulthood ceremony meant. Once the ceremony had passed, for the Shao Yan that didn't train, he would be subject to the criteria of searching for Do Chi techniques. Because he was so weak, he would be sent to do a normal job in the other parts of the Shao clan. This was a clan rule, and even if the clan leader was his father, he would not be able to do anything about it. If one didn't reach Doja by the age of 25, the clan would abaddon them. Sorry, Yen heir. If you don't reach the Doji Chi 7th stage by next year, I can't do anything to help you, no matter how much I want to. In this clan, I'm not the sole decision maker. There's also those old geezers waiting for me to make a mistake. Looking at the peaceful Shao Yan, Shao Zhan voiced guiltily. Father, I will continue to work hard. 1 year later, I'll definitely reach the Doji Chi 7th stage. Shao Yan reassured his father. 4 stages in 1 year. If it were me from before, it may have been possible, but now. I might not have much of a chance. Though Shao Yan was trying to reassure his father, he himself was bitter about it. Knowing full well Shao Yan's position, Shao Zhan could only answer with a sigh. He knew that 4 stages of Doji Chi in a year was extremely difficult. He gently patted Shao Yan's head, and smiled, saying, It's getting quite late, you should go back and get some rest. Tomorrow, the clan has a guest and you shouldn't miss the ceremony. Guest? Who? Shao Yan asked, full of curiosity. You'll find out tomorrow. Shao Zhan winked at the restless Shao Yan, leaving with a big smile on his face. Don't you worry, father. I'll work really hard. Shao Yan rubbed the simple ring while raising his head and whispering. Just when Shao Yan raised his head, the black ring on his finger suddenly lit up with a mysterious glow and flashed. Blinking, Shao Yan realized it wasn't a person. Chapter 3, Guests. A young man was meditating on his bed. In front of him, his hands were clasped in a weird yet relaxed manner. His chest peacefully rose and fell with the rhythm of his breath. Everything was just, so natural. With every breath he took, a pale white stream of what seemed to be air darted into the young man's nose and mouth, squeezing into his body and reshaping it. As the young man was meditating, a strange yet dim sparkle appeared for a brief moment on the plain black ring that he wore on his finger. Hoo! The young man slowly let out his breath and opened his eyes, blinking. A pale white light flashed across his black pupils. That was the Do Chi that had just been absorbed but not yet completely refined. It took such great effort to get that Do Chi, but, F***ck, it's disappearing again. No, no please no, the young man tried desperately to keep the disappearing Do Chi from slipping away but to no avail. As the last sliver of Do Chi left his body, the young man's face changed from being calm to one of anger and despair, and his voice rose with fury. He curled his hands into fists and was rapidly clenching and unclenching them. Eventually, his visage transited from extreme anger to a forced grin. After all, there was nothing he could do about it. Wearily, he dragged his body off the bed and stretched his numb legs. With only Do Chi of a third stage, such menial matters were always present. After having done a few exercises in his plain room, an old, wizened voice sounded outside of his door, "Young master, the clan leader has requested your presence in the hall." The young man was the third son of the clan header, Xiao Yan. Above him were two brothers, but they had already left the clan in search of adventure. Only at the end of each year would they come back and meet their family. Overall, however, the two brothers were extremely nice to their little brother, Xiao Yan, even when he fell from being a genius to a piece of trash. Coming. Xiao Yan changed his clothes and went out. Outside of his room was an elder in a green robe. "Let's go." Looking at the young man's fresh face, the elder nodded his head. But when he turned around, his eyes showed a flash of regret. If young master had his former talent, he probably would have been a great doja, such a waste. The elder and the young man crossed through the backyard and finally arrived solemnly at the welcoming hall. After politely knocking, the two softly went in. The hall was quite large, but there were many people already in it. At the head of the hall were Xiao Zhan and three emotionless elders. They were the clan elders and had equal importance to the clan leader. On the left, below the four were other elders from the clan. These elders didn't hold as much power as the clan elders, but nevertheless, they had quite a bit of say and weren't pushovers. Besides these elders were young men that had shown promise and talent. On the other side was three strangers, looks like they were the people that Xiao Zhan foretold last night. The young man's eyes quickly swept through the strangers. Of the three, there was an elder wearing a moon-white outfit. Although the elder was all smiles, his tiny eyes were full of energy, restlessly scanning the room. Xiao Yan's sight dipped lower, stopping at the elder's chest. On his chest was a silver moon, and besides the moon were 7 shiny stars. 7-star de dosher. This guy's a 7-star de dosher. Incredible. Xiao Yao could barely refrain from gasping at the elder. The elder was stronger than his own father. In fact, he was 2 whole stars stronger. Anyone that became a de dosher was at least a power to be reckoned with. With that kind of strength, most places would probably rush for recruitment. To be able to see such a powerful person, it's not surprising that Xiao Yan was shocked. Beside the elder were a young couple. They were also wearing moon-white robes. The male was about 20 years old and had a handsome face, coupled with a strong build. He was definitely the ideal type for any girl. Of course, the most important thing was, on his chest were 5 golden stars. This represented the strength of the young man, 5-star doja. To be able to become a 5-star doja at the age of 20 definitely shows the exceptional talent of the young man. With a handsome face and decent strength, this young man not only became the target of stares from young girls in the clan, even Xiao Mei occasionally sent glances to him. But, the looks that the girls gave had no effect on the young man. His entire focus was concentrated on the young girl beside him. The young girl's age was similar to Xiao Yan, which made Xiao Yan flinch. Her beauty even rivaled Xiao Mei's. No, she was prettier than Xiao Mei. In the entire clan, probably only Xiao Sun Heir could rival her. No wonder the guys of Xiao clan chased girls outside of the clan. On the intricate ear of the young girl was a green jade earrings. As she moved around, the pieces of jade clinked together, chirping a beautiful melody and adding a hint of royalty to the girl. In addition, on the developing chest of the girl were 3 golden stars. A 3-star doja, this girl, if she didn't use any special methods, she must be an incredible genius. Xiao Yao's heart fell, she had talent rivaling his former talent. But Xiao Yao forced his eyes away from the cold beauty. No matter what, beneath Xiao Yao's immature appearance was a mature soul. Although the girl was very pretty, he kept himself from acting like a drooling slob. Xiao Yan's actions caused a slight tension within the girl. Although she wasn't the kind that had an entire universe revolving around her, her beauty and appearance wasn't bad. Xiao Yan's random glance over her was a first for her. Father, 3 elders. Walking quickly, Xiao Yan courteously greeted the Xiao Zhan and the 3 elders. Ha, Yan heir, you came. Here, come sit. Seeing Xiao Yan arrival, Xiao Zhan stopped talking to his guests and nodded in the direction of Xiao Yan, waving his hand to indicate for Xiao Yan to take a seat. With a slight smile, Xiao Yan ignored the lazy, almost hateful gazes from the 3 clan elders and searched for his seat. But, he was surprised at the result, he didn't have a seat. Ha, my position in the clan is just sinking lower and lower. It was better before, but now, they even embarrass me in front of guests, these old geezers. Xiao Yao ridiculed himself silently, in his mind, he shook his head as if it could block the emotions that welled up within him. Looking at the motionless Xiao Yan, the young clan members let out soft, mocking laughter, showing their happiness at seeing Xiao Yan be made a fool. Finally, Xiao Zhan realized Xiao Yan's predicament. A look of anger flashed across his face before being replaced with a bent eyebrow. Second elder, you. Oh, really sorry. I can't believe that I forgot about young master. Hee, I'll go get someone to prepare a chair. The yellow-robed elder smiled at the staring Xiao Zhan. He patted his forehead in an act of self-criticism, but the belittling look in his eyes didn't fade. Brother Xiao Yan, come sit here. The clear voice of a girl rang across the hall. The 3 elders tensed, their gaze shifting to Sun Er in the corner. Their mouths twitched but none of them said anything. In the corner, Xiao Sun Er closed the thick book in her lap, and blinked at Xiao Yan. Looking at Xiao Sun Er's smiling face, Xiao Yan froze for a second. Quickly, he recovered and after touching his nose, he walked towards Sun Er under the envious gazes of the surrounding clan members and after what seemed like the longest few seconds, he plopped next to Sun Er. Xiao Yan whispered, thanks, you've rescued me again. Xiao Sun Er lightly smiled, 2 small dimples appearing on her face. Her slender fingers flipped open the book in front of her. Even though she was extremely young, there was an air of intellectuality around her. After scanning through the page, Sun Er suddenly complained, Brother Xiao Yan, you haven't sat beside me, alone, for 3 years now, right? You're a genius in the clan, isn't it simple for you if you want friends? Looking at the resentful face of Sun Er, Xiao Yan drily laughed. But the thing is, a certain someone snuck into my room every night when I was 4 to 6. And then that certain someone used a clumsy technique and weak Do Zi Qi to strengthen my bones and meridians. Every time, the same person would get himself sweating profusely before leaving. Brother Xiao Yan, do you know who he is? Sun Er paused for a moment and suddenly tilted her head, and smiled towards Xiao Yan. How am I supposed to know? I was so young back then, in fact, I could barely walk, how would I know? Xiao Yan's heart began to beat violently. Forcing open a smile, Xiao Yan guilty turned his gaze to the center of the hall. Looking at Xiao Yan's reaction, a slight smile floated on Xiao Sun Er's face. Her sight moved back to the book on her lap and as if talking to herself, she said, even though I know that person did it in goodwill, I'm a girl, right? How can I let someone carelessly touch me? If I ever find out who did it, Xiao Yan's mouth began to twitch violently, keeping his sight straight, he shut his mouth tight. Chapter 4, Faction of the Misty Clouds. In the main hall, Xiao Zhan and the 3 clan elders were talking excitedly with the strange elder. The guest seemed to have something weighing on his mind, yet every time when it seemed as if he was about to broach the subject, he would swallow back the words and change the topic. Each time he did this, the delicate girl next to him would give the elder a subtle yet firm glance. After listening on to their conversation for a while, Xiao Yan was bored by their conversation and his head was slowly drooping. "Brother Xiao Yan, do you know who they are?" Right when Xiao Yan was about to fall asleep from boredom, Sun Er who was beside him opened her ancient book and asked Xiao Yan. "Do you know?" Xiao Yan curiously looked at Sun Er. "Did you see the symbol of a silver sword with the clouds on the cuff of their robes?" Sun Er said with a light smile. "Oh." Xiao Yan looked towards the cuffs of the three and indeed, there he clearly saw the embroidered symbol of a sword sparkling in the clouds. "They are from the faction of Misty Clouds?" Xiao Yan asked in bewilderment. Even though Xiao Yan had never gone out into the real world, he had read from books about this faction. Xiao Yan's clan lived in a city named Wutan City which was part of the Jiama Empire. Even though this city is listed as being one of the bigger cities within Jiama Empire, it was still dwarfed by the size of the empire, despite having the Magic Monsters mountain range behind it. Within the city itself, Xiao Yan's clan was the biggest. Besides the Xiao clan, there were two other clans that competed with the Xiao clan, but even after 24 years of blood and strife, they were unable to overtake the Xiao clan. If the Xiao clan was the strongest power in Wutan City, then the faction of Misty Clouds would be the strongest power in the entire Jiama Empire. The difference between the Xiao clan and the faction of Misty Clouds was enormous, to the point where Xiao Yan's father Xiao Zhan, who normally kept a strict and harsh face, was extremely respectful in front of these guests. "Why are they here?" Xiao Yan whispered. Sun Er's slim fingers paused. "Maybe it's related to you, brother Xiao Yan." "Me? But I don't have any relationship with them." Hearing Sun Er's response, Xiao Yan paused before shaking his head and whispering back. "Do you know the name of the girl up there?" Sun Er glanced at the girl. "No, do you?" Xian Yan furrowed his brows as he examined the face of the girl Sun Er pointed out. He cannot recall ever having seen her before. "She's Nailin Yanran." A curious expression floated on Sun Er's face. Xiao Yan stiffened. "Nailin Yanran? The granddaughter of Nailin Jia, the Lionheart commander of Jiama Empire? She's my fiancée that was set between our families, before I was born." Grandfather and Nailin Jia were like blood brothers and at that time, you and Nailin Yanran were born around the same time, so the two decided that you guys would get married. But, unfortunately, 3 years after you were born, grandfather died in a fight with a clan enemy and as time passed, Xiao clan's relation with the Nailin family became weaker. Sun Er paused and looked at Xiao Yan who was absorbed in Sun Er's story. Nailin Jia is not only arrogant, he also puts extreme emphasis on promises. The marriage was decided by him, so even though your name has been quite bad the past few years, he has never once thought of annulling the marriage. That geezer sure is quite obstinate, Xiao Yan smiled. Nailin Jia has the final say in all matters within the family, so even though he really is very fond of his granddaughter, no one in the family has stepped up to oppose the marriage. Sun Er's beautiful eyes lightly glanced at Xiao Yan before continuing, but 5 years ago, Nailin Yanran became a student under the faction leader of Misty Clouds. In these 5 years, Nailin Yanran demonstrated incredible talent. When a person has enough power to change the path of their life, they would try their hardest to change things that they don't like, and unfortunately, she absolutely hates her promised marriage with brother Xiao Yan. You're saying that she came to cancel the marriage? Xiao Yan's face darkened. At this moment he was furious, not because Nailin Yanran did not want him as her husband but rather, because Nailin Yanran is trying to cancel the marriage with the entire clan present. If that happens, then his father would lose much of his dignity and respect within the clan. Xiao Yan slowly breathed in, the cold air calming his raging thoughts. Within his sleeve, Xiao Yan curled his fist, thinking, if I was a dosher, who would dare to trample over my dignity? It was true, if Xiao Yan was a dosher, then, even if Nalan Yanran had the backing of the faction of Misty Clouds, she would not be able to do such a thing. A 15-year-old Doshi, there were only a few that had such high accomplishments in the entire history of Dochi mainland. And the few people that were at that level when they were that young are now some of the most influential people in the entire Dochi world. A small fragile hand cleverly evaded Xiao Yan's sleeves and held on to Xiao Yan's hands. Sun Er softly said, "Brother Xiao Yan, if she really cancels the marriage, then that's her own loss. I believe that in a couple of years, she will be regretting her decisions today." "Regret?" Xiao Yan sneered. "With my current abilities, I don't have that kind of luxury." Xiao Yan paused before changing the tone of his voice. "Wait, Sun Er. How are you so familiar with them? The things that you've just said, my father might not even know some of them. How do you know all these?" Sun Er stiffened but did not say anything. Looking at Shui Er's avoidance on the subject, Xiao Yan could only helplessly smile. Even though Sun Er was also part of the Xiao family, she and Xiao Yan didn't have any relation by blood. In addition, Xiao Yan had never seen Sun Er's parents, and every time he asked his father about them, Xiao Zhan would shake his head and not speak. Soon, Sun Er's parents became a taboo subject, something that they seemed to fear speaking about. For Xiao Yan, Sun Er's identity was always veiled in mystery. No matter how hard or how cleverly he tried, Sun Er would always stay silent. "Ugh, whatever, if you don't want to say it then don't." Shaking his head, Xiao Yan's face suddenly darkened again. The guest elder, under the repeated signals from Nalan Yanran, finally stood up. Using the faction of Misty Clouds to pressure father. This Nalan Yanran certainly is using some shameless tactics. Fury began to build within Xiao Yan's heart. Chapter 5, Qi Gathering Powder. Ahem. The white-robed elder cleared his throat and stood up. Putting his hands together, he smiled, "Clan leader Xiao Zhan. The reason we came here for today is because we would like your help for something. Of course, Guyi, if you have any problems just let me know. If I can help you solve it, then I definitely wouldn't dare say no." To the visiting elder, Xiao Zhan did not refuse, but since he did not know what the request was, he did not make any promises either. Leader Xiao, do you know her?" Guyi smiled lightly and pointed to the girl next to him. I'm sorry, this girl is." Xiao Zhan looked over the girl and awkwardly shook his head. When Nalan Yanran became Yunjun's student, she was only 8. After studying in the faction of Misty Clouds for 5 years, she had changed quite a lot. Before she was only a child, but now she is a blooming teenager. Her name is Nalan Yanran. "Uncle Xiao, I haven't come to pay my respect in a long time. It's my fault that you don't recognize me," Nalan Yanran sweetly said. Yanran, I heard that you've become a student under Yunjun. At the time, I thought that it was just a baseless rumor, but now I realize that it's actually true. What incredible talent you must have, Xiao Zhan complimented. It was just good luck. Smiling lightly, Nalan Yanran began to feel uncomfortable and lightly tugged Guye's robe with her hand under the table. Leader Xiao, the request that I have relates to Yanran. In addition, this was assigned by our faction leader. Guyi kept his smile, but when he mentioned the faction leader, he subconsciously lessened his smile and his face grew serious. Like Guyi, Xiao Zhan stopped smiling. The faction leader of the faction of Misty Clouds was one of the most important people in the entire Jiama Empire. Xiao Zhan, who was a small clan leader, wouldn't dare to provoke her. But with her power, what would she need Xiao clan to help with? Guyi did say that it was related to Yanran, is it that? A wandering thought crossed Xiao Zhan's mind, causing the edge of his mouth to twitch slightly and his firm hand to start trembling. Thankfully his hands were covered by his long sleeves. Taking care to push down the thought, Xiao Zhan shakily asked, "Mr. Guyi, please do tell me what is the faction's request." Guyi hesitated, but he thought about how much the faction leader adored Yanran and thus, he clenched his teeth. "Leader Xiao, you know how strict the rules are in the faction. In addition, faction leader views Yanran very highly. In fact, faction leader is expecting Yanran to be the next faction leader. However, due to a special rule, future faction leaders cannot have a relation with another male before they become the official faction leader. Taking a breath, Guyi continued, when our faction leader asked Yanran about it, she realized that Yanran and the Shao clan had a marriage proposal, therefore, faction leader asks for leader Shao to cancel this marriage. Ka. The jade cup in Xiao Zhan's hands turned into a fine mist in an instant. In the main hall, everyone was silent. The three clan elders were shocked by Guye's words, but soon afterwards, the elders glanced at Xiao Zhan with plain glee and ridicule. Hee, how will you respond to this? The three elders thought sinisterly. A couple of the younger kids didn't know about the set marriage between Xiao Yan and Nalan Yanran, but after asking their parents about it, their faces brightened. Their glances towards Xiao Yan were full of ridicule and distaste. Looking at Xiao Zhan's dark face, Nalan Yanran lowered her head and squeezed her fingers together. Leader Xiao, I know that this request is a little over the top, but because faction leader requested it, please cancel the marriage. Helplessly letting out a breath, Guyi lightly whispered to Xiao Zhan. Xiao Zhan's hands curled into fists. A faint green dough chi slowly creeped over his body and finally, it formed a illusory lion's head in front of Xiao Zhan's face. Shao Clan's secret chi method, Furious Lion's Rage. Level, Middle Xian. Looking at Xiao Zhan's reaction, Guye's face became serious. He moved to place Yanran behind him and within his eagle claw-like hands a green dough chi gathered. The dough chi released small but sharp illusory swords. Faction of Misty Clouds Chi Method, Greenwood Sword. Level, Low Xian. With the release of dough chi, the weaker youngsters within the main hall became pale and felt their chests tighten. When Xiao Zhan's breathing became more intense, the three elders yelled out. Their voices were like lightning that swept through the hall. Xiao Zhan, stop. Don't forget, you're the clan leader of Xiao clan. Xiao Zhan stiffened and the dough chi on his body disappeared slowly. Xiao Zhan fell back into his chair and emotionlessly watched the lowered head of Yanran. Finally, he said in a raspy tone, Nalan, you have some guts. With such a daughter, I'm really envious of Nalan Su. Nalan Yanran twitched, Uncle Xiao. No. Call me clan leader Xiao from now on. I don't deserve to be called uncle, you're the future faction leader of the faction of Misty Clouds. In the future, you'll probably one of the most important people in Dochi mainland. My Xiao Yan only has modest talent, he doesn't deserve you. Thank you clan leader Xiao. Hearing Xiao Zhan's words, Guye's face brightened. Apologizing, he says, clan leader Xiao, faction leader understands that today's request is quite disrespectful. Therefore, she asked me to bring something, please accept it as an apology from our faction leader. Guyi touched a ring on his hand and suddenly a completely pangreen jade box appeared in his hand. Carefully opening the box, a fragrance swept through the entire main hall. Anyone who smelled it felt relaxed. The three elders' curiosity got the better of them and they poked their head to see the contents of the box, chi-gathering powder. Chapter 6, Alchemists. Within the jade box, a green pill, about the size of a dragon's eye, laid quietly. The refreshing scent that had spread throughout the entire hall was emanating from the pill. In Dochi mainland, to become a doge, one needs to be able to compress the qi within one's own body to a qi cyclone. But the process of compressing qi to become a qi cyclone has an extremely high failure rate. After failing, one's 9 duan qi would fall back to 8 duan. Some unlucky people need to compress their qi 10 or more times before they are successful in doing so. But by wasting so much time on the compression of qi, one would lose the best time to practice qi and thus destroy their future. Qi gathering power, its use was to allow someone with 9 duan qi to have a 100% success rate when trying to compress one's qi. This effect makes many people red-eyed. After all, anyone that's not a doge is treated extremely badly. But qi gathering power isn't something made by nature, rather it was made by someone, alchemist. In Do Chi mainland, the sole profession that's more desirable than a doge are alchemists. Like the name suggests, alchemists are able to create special pills that raise one's strengths. Every free agent alchemist is sought after by many forces. The reason as to why alchemists have such a high position is because of how rare alchemists are and how strict the requirements to become an alchemist are. First of all, one must be of the fire attribute. And then, within the fire attribute, one must have a tiny sliver of the wood attribute to act as a catalysis in pill refining. In the Do Chi mainland, a person's attribute is determined by their soul. A soul since birth will only have one soul attribute and reject any other attribute. So it's impossible for a person to have two attributes. Of course, nothing is impossible. Within 1,000,000 people, there will always be someone who has a mutated soul. Within these people that have mutated souls, some have the potential to become alchemists. However, a person that has the fire and wood attributes is not enough to become an alchemist. That's because one must also have a strong soul perception or soul molding. In the refinement of pills, the three most important requirements are, the material, the flame and one's soul perception. The material. They would have to be natural treasures. After all, even the best alchemists can't create a god-tier pill from trash material. Therefore, good base materials are very important for good pills. The flame. Or the fire that's required when refining pills. The fire used in refining pills can't be normal flames but rather, they must be Do Chi flames created Do Chi with a fire attribute. Of course, there are some extremely strong mutated flames in nature. Some strong alchemists would take these flames and use them to refine pills instead of their own Do Chi flame. Not only do these mutated flames boost the success rate of the refinement, they also increase the effectiveness of the pills. Because refining pills is a gruesome task, extended periods of refinement requires a lot of Do Chi, and because of that, every brilliant alchemist is also a strong fire-type doge. The final requirement is soul perception. When refining a pill, the intensity of the flame needs to be controlled with ridiculous precision. If the flame is slightly too hot, the pill within the furnace would be burned to ashes, wasting the time and effort of the alchemist. Therefore, controlling the intensity of the flame is a prerequisite to becoming an alchemist. But in order to have a control over the flames, one must have an incredible soul perception. Without soul perception, even if one meets or even exceeds the first two requirements, it would be pointless to try to refine pills. Under these strict conditions, the ones who have the qualifications to become an alchemist are few and rare. Because there aren't that many alchemists, the magical pills that they refine are also few and sparse. Since rare things are valuable and pills can definitely be defined as rare, alchemists all have a honorable, to an exaggerated extent, position. Within the main hall, with the gasps of the three elders, the younger generation all stare at the jade box in Guye's hands. Next to her father, Xiao Mei licks her red lips with her soft tongue and stares at the box, without blinking. He, this was refined by our honorable elder Gu He. I think that everyone here has heard of his name, right? Looking at the embarrassing appearance of the three elders, Gu Yi started becoming arrogant. This pill was refined by the Pill King Gu He. Hearing Gu Ye's words, the three elders once again embarrassed themselves. Pill King Gu He, an extremely influential alchemist within the Jiama Empire. His alchemy is mysterious and unpredictable, causing countless different forces to try to fawn upon him. Not only does Gu He have extraordinary talent in alchemy, his own strength is at the level of a Do Wang and he's one of the top 10 doges in Jiama Empire. Refined by his hands, the qi-gathering powder's value is probably exponentially higher than other normal qi-gathering power. The three elders smile at the qi-gathering powder within the jade box. If the Shao clan gets this qi-gathering powder, then the Shao clan can probably develop another young doge. Right when the three elders were thinking about how to get the pill for their own grandsons, a young voice filled with fury resonates within the main hall. Mr. Guyi, it would be better if you kept the pill. Your request, we might not accept it. The main hall fell silent and everyone's gaze turns upon the delicate face of Xiao Yan in the corner. Xiao Yan, you don't have the right to say anything right now. Be quiet. One of the elders' face became dark as he yells at Xiao Yan. Xiao Yao, be quiet. I know that you're not happy about this but we'll decide what will happen. Another quite old elder said to Xiao Yan. Three elders, if your sons or grandsons had their marriage released today, would you still be saying that? Xiao Yao slowly stands up. The edge of his mouth was curved upwards in ridicule. Since it was apparent that the three elders treated him with disdain, why should he be so respectful to them? Hearing Xiao Yan's words, the three elders couldn't find a way to argue against his words. The grumpy third elder even started materializing his dou qi in anger. Three elders, Xiao Yao Ge isn't wrong. He's the victim of this so you guys shouldn't decide for him. A clear girl's voice rang across the main hall. Hearing the girl's voice, the three elders' arrogance fell and after exchanging worried glances, they all nodded and sat back down. Looking at the three elders backing off, Xiao Yao turns his head back and deeply gazes at the smiling Xiao Sunair. Who are you? To be able to make the three elder fear you. Pressing down his confusion, Xiao Yao quickly walks up and respectfully bows to his father, Xiao Zhan. Afterwards, he turns around to face Nalan Yanran. Slowly letting a breath of air, he asks, Lady Nalan, I would like to ask a question. Your visit here today, to release the marriage, did grandfather Nalan give his consent? Before, when Xiao Yan came out from his corner, Nalan Yanran already felt uncomfortable with him. Now hearing his question, her brow scrunches up. This guy, at first I thought he was pretty nice, but he's actually extremely shameless. Does he not know the difference between the two of us? Criticizing Xiao Yan in her mind, Nalan Yanran never considered how releasing the marriage would put Xiao Yan and his father into an awkward and infuriating situation. Standing up and staring at the should-be husband of hers, Nalan Yanran says, Grandfather didn't give his consent. But this is my own problem and not related to him. Since grandfather hasn't said anything, then I hope that you will forgive my father for not accepting your request. Our marriage was set by our two grandfathers and since none of them have said to release the marriage, then this marriage will go on. Or else, the people that are trying to release the marriage would be disrespecting their ancestors. I think, that within our clan, there aren't any people that would do such a dishonorable thing. Xiao Yan tilts his head and stares straight at the three elders. Using the dishonorable title, Xiao Yan forced the elders to be silent. In the strict clan, doing something as blasphemous as disrespecting one's ancestors would be enough for them to lose their spot as an elder of the clan. After being rebuffed by Xiao Yan, Nalan Yanran couldn't find any argument to retort Xiao Yan's claim. Her face became ashen and heavily stomping her feet, her princessy nature became apparent. Looking at the young man with disgust, she annoyingly says, Under what conditions will you release the marriage? Were the reparations too little? Alright, I can ask my teacher to give you another 3 qi gathering powder. In addition, if you want to, I can let you join faction of Misty Clouds and learn profound dou qi training methods, is that enough? Hearing the attractive conditions from Nalan Yanran, the 3 elders' breathing started to become heavy. Within the main hall, the younger generation swallowed the saliva. Joining faction of Misty Clouds? God, that's the dream of countless people. After saying all these conditions, Nalan Yanran raised her snow-white chin, like a princess addressing her servants. She waited for Xiao Yan's response and knew that these conditions were enough to make any young man crazy. Chapter 7, Divorce. Unlike what Nalan Yanran expected, after saying the alluring condition, the young man in front of her started trembling. He slowly raised his head and his delicate and young face was contorted into a fearsome, savage face. Even though Xiao Yan had endured countless taunts over the past 3 years, even he had a limit. Nalan Yanran's actions had roughly stepped on the final shred of dignity hidden deep within Xiao Yan's heart. Ah, seeing the vicious face of the young man, Yanran sprang backwards. The young man by her sides took the chance to pull out his sword and coldly stared at Xiao Yan. I want to kill you. Even though his teeth were clattering, Xiao Yan's words had an unmistakable killing intent to them. His hands were curled into fists and within his black pupils, furious flames burned. Yan you're being rude. At the top of the hall, Xiao Zhan was shocked by the reaction of Xiao Yan and hurriedly quieted Xiao Yan. The current Xiao clan wouldn't dare be on the wrong side of faction of Misty Clouds. Even though his fists tightened even further, Xiao Yan lowered his head. Moments later, he lightly lifts up his head. The difference was that the vicious face that he had displayed earlier had been completely replaced by a calm and impassive face. In the past 3 years, Xiao Yan had endured countless discrimination and taunts. As a result, Xiao Yan was now more mature than before. Perhaps his greatest gain from the past 3 years was that he had learned to keep his emotions under control. Looking at the completely different young man, Guyi and Nalan Yanran suddenly felt a chill. This kid, if he stays useless then it isn't a big deal. But if he gains strength, then he will definitely become a dangerous force to be reckoned with. Guyi solemnly thought. Xiao Yan. Even though I don't know why my actions have infuriated you thus far, but, you should still release the marriage. Slowly letting out a breath, Nalan Yanran pushed her fear and stiffened her face. Remember, my visit to Xiao clan was permitted by my teacher, the faction leader of Misty Clouds. Pursing her lips, Nalan Yanran said, with a slight hint of helplessness, you can understand that my visit today is partly coercion. But you should understand that the reality is harsh and nothing is fair. Even though it shouldn't mean much, you should understand the difference between us, we don't have any hope of being together. Hearing the absolute statements of the girl, Xiao Yan's mouth curved into a sneer, Lady Nalan. You should understand, in Doqi mainland, a woman going back on her marriage would be embarrassed the opposite party in front of everyone. I don't really care about being embarrassed, but my father. He's the clan leader. If we accept your request today then how do you expect him to rule over Xiao clan? How will Xiao clan keep a foothold in Wutan City? Looking at the furious young man, Nalan Yanran's brows furrowed. She peeked at Xiao Zhan at the end of the hall. He appeared as if he had just aged by a lot. Seeing that, she felt slightly sorry for her actions and bit her lips. After musing for a moment, her eyes lit up. She whispers, today's request, it's a little reckless on my part. So, today, I will temporarily take back my request to release my marriage. But, you must promise me something. What promise? I can delay today's request for 3 years. 3 years from now, you will come to faction of Misty Clouds and challenge me. If I win then I will release the marriage in front of everyone and at that time, you would have performed your clan's rites of adulthood so even if you lose, you won't be affecting your father Xiao Zhan or Xiao clan. Do you accept? When I lose then, it won't affect the name of my father. But maybe for my entire life, I'll bear the shame of losing. This woman is too cruel. Xiao Yan felt helpless, he was angry but he couldn't find a source to vent it. Lady Nalan, it's not like you don't know the condition of Yan heir. How do you expect him to challenge you? Insulting him like this, is it fun for you? Xiao Zhan smacked the table and angrily stood up. Xiao Zhan Shu, when releasing a marriage, there must someone who bears the responsibilities of it. If not for you, I would be releasing the marriage today. Afterwards, I will announce it to the public. After being blocked several times, Nalan Yanran was also getting angry and coldly shouted at Xiao Yan, since you don't want to hurt the name of Xiao Zhan Shu, then accept the challenge. 3 years or now, will you choose the former or the later? Nalan Yanran, you don't need to act all high and mighty. The reason behind you releasing this marriage is because you don't think that I, Xiao Yan, a near cripple, match you, a genius. Forgive me for putting things plainly. Besides your beauty, I don't care about anything else of yours. The faction of Misty Clouds is very strong, I'll admit that. But I am young. I have lots of time. When I was 12, I was a doge, but you, Nalan Yenran, when you were 12, how many Duan Qi did you have? You're right, I might be crippled right now, but since I created miracles 3 years ago, why do you think that I can't repeat such miracles in the future? Why do you think that I can't become the genius that I once was? Facing the aggressive stance, Xiao Yan finally erupted like a volcano. His face became completely serious and his words shocked everyone in the main hall. Who would have thought that the quiet young man possessed such a sharp tongue? Nalan's mouth twitched. Even though she was extremely pissed at Xiao Yan, she couldn't find words to argue against his statements. Xiao Yan's words were truth, even though he was crippled now, he was a doge back when he was 12 years old. But Nalan Yenran was only 8 Duan Qi at that time. Lady Nalan, because of Grandfather Nalan, I'll give you some advice. 30 years east, 30 years west, don't you dare bully me because I'm poor now. Xiao Yan's tough words made Nalan stiffen. Yes. What a great saying, don't you dare bully me because I'm poor now. My son can't possibly be ordinary. At the end of the hall, Xiao Zhan's eyes were lit with vigor and his heavy palms slammed against the table, causing tea to splatter everywhere. Clenching her teeth and staring at the sneering young man in front of her, Nalan became so angry that her head began to feel dizzy. Nalan Yenran had been spoiled since birth and had never been humiliated by someone the same age as her. Her childish voice climbed another pitch. What is your basis for humiliating me? Even if your talent before was unsurpassed by anyone, you're a cripple now. Okay, I, Nalan Yenran, will wait for the day that you surpass me. Today's release, I won't mention it anymore, but 3 years from now, I will wait for you at faction of Misty Clouds. If you have the guts, then show me how you've changed your situation. If you defeat me then I, Nalan Yenran, will be your slave for the rest of my life. Of course, if you're still crippled 3 years later then you better prepare the contract to release our marriage. Looking at the ashen face of the girl, Xiao Yan ridicules, it won't take 3 years. I wouldn't want you even if you were begging me to become my wife. After saying that, Xiao Yan ignored the frozen face of Yenran and turned around. Quickly walking forward to a table, he took out a paper and started to write. The ink slowly dropped onto the paper, and finally, his pen stopped moving. Suddenly, Xiao Yan's right hand reached for a short sword on the desk and pointed the sharp blade at his left hand. As soon as readied the sword, he firmly drew blood from his left hand. His bloodied hand pressed down on the white paper, leaving a glaring red mark. Lightly picking up the contract, Xiao Yan laughed, a laugh of victory. When he walked past Yenran, he smashed the contract on the table. Don't you dare think that I, Xiao Yan, think highly of some genius wife. This contract isn't a contract to release the marriage but rather, I am divorcing you from the Xiao clan. From now on, you, Nalan Yenran, have no relations with the Xiao clan. You dare divorce me? Looking at the bloody contract on the table, Nalan Yenran's eyes opened wide in disbelief. With her beauty, talent and background, to have been divorced by a small clan's cripple. This sudden turn of events made her think that she was in a dream. Coldly looking at Nalan Yenran's dumbfounded expression, Xiao Yan turned around and kneels in front of Xiao Zhan. He gave a heavy kowtow, biting his lips and didn't say anything. Even though Xiao Yan actually divorced Nalan Yenran, when the event spread out, others might not think that it's the truth. They, who don't know what happened, would think that Nalan Yenran used her tyrannical background for force Xiao clan to release the marriage. After all, with Yenran's beauty, talent and background, a cripple from Xiao clan would never be able to match her. No one would think that Xiao Yan had the boldness to divorce a future faction leader of the faction of Misty Clouds. Because of that, being Xiao Yan's father, Xiao Zhan would probably have to endure endless ridicule. Looking at the kneeling Xiao Yan and understanding the guilty feelings that his son was having, Xiao Zhan helplessly smiled, "I believe that my son won't stay crippled forever. Gossip won't stand a chance when the hard facts come out in the future. Father, 3 years from now, I will go to faction of Misty Clouds and redeem today's shame." With slightly wet eyes, Xiao Yan did another heavy kowtow and stood up. Without hesitating, Xiao Yan walked towards the door of the main hall. When he passed Nalan Yanran, Xiao Yan pauses of a moment and spits out cold words from his young mouth. 3 years from now, I will find you. The shadow of the young man, under the shining sun, extended extremely far. Looking at it, it seemed very lonely. Nalan Yanran's small mouth opened but no sound came out. She stared at the disappearing back of Xiaoya and the contract in her hand felt as heavy as a mountain. Ahem, since your goal has been accomplished, please leave now. Looking at the receding young man, even though Xiao Zhan's face was impassive, the hands inside of his sleeve curled into fists so tight that the fingers became a pale white. Xiao Shu, I apologize for today's event. If you have time in the future, make sure to come visit the Nalan clan. Lightly bowing to the impassive Xiao Zhan, Nalan also didn't want to stay. She quickly stood up and went towards the door of the main hall. Behind her, Guyi and the handsome young man quickly followed her. Take the qi-gathering powder. Waving his hand, Xiao Zhan threw the jade box on the table at them. Guyi quickly caught the falling box and bitterly smiled while placing the box within his ring. Lady Nalan, hopefully you won't regret your actions today. And also, don't assume that with faction of Misty Clouds behind you, you can do anything you want. There are a lot of people stronger than Yun Yun. When Nalan Yanran was about to exit the door, a clear girl's cold voice sounded within the hall. The steps of the three paused and they glanced towards the corner where the voice came from, finding a purple-dressed girl slowly flipping a book. The sunlight shined through the window next to her and perfectly wrapped around the girl. From afar, she looked like a heavenly purple lotus blooming, clean and graceful, as if she was from the heavens. As if she felt the glances from the three, the girl picked her head up from the old book and within the autumn-like eyes of hers, a thin line of golden flame peeked out. Looking at the thin flame within the girl's eyes, Guyi immediately stiffened and a fearful expression crossed his wizened face. His shriveled hands immediately grabbed the confused Nalan Yanran and young man and he fled from the main hall as if he was fearing for his life. Looking at the actions of Guyi, except for a few people, the others all had expressions of confusion. Chapter 8, The Mysterious Elder. Emotionlessly leaving the main hall, the frustrated Xiao Yan followed his daily routine and slowly climbed to the top of the mountain behind the clan building. Sitting at the top of the mountain, Xiao Yan calmly watched the steep mountaintops far away being shrouded in mist. There, in the mist, was the Jia Ma Empire's famous magic beast mountain range. Power ah. In this world, without power, you're not even worth some excrement. At least, no one tries to trample on excrement. With shoulders waving up and down, the young man's soft, self-taunting voice echoed across the top of the mountain, filling the air with sadness. Yanking his hair, Xiao Yan bit down on his lip, allowing the bloody taste to spread in his mouth. Even though he didn't let his emotions get to him in the main hall, the Nalan Yanran's words stabbed at his heart like knives. I will never be insulted like this again. Opening his left hand, which still had the bloody scar from the events of the day, Xiao Yan's voice was hoarse but firm. Kid, looks like you need some help. Right when Xiao Yan pledged his oath, a wizened, strange laugh entered his ear. Xiao Yan's face changed and he immediately turned around. With a hawk-like gaze, he scanned his surroundings but didn't even find a shadow. Stop searching, I'm on your finger. Right when Xiao Yan thought that he was hallucinating, the strange laugh aimlessly sounded again. Xiao Yan's eyes contracted and his gaze fell on his right hand's black ring. You're talking. Enduring his heart's pounding, Xiao Yan tried to keep his voice calm. Kid, you're quite calm, to not have been scared witless. From the ring, a taunting voice sounded. Who are you? Why are you in my ring? What are trying to do? After calming himself, Xiao Yan asked the essential questions. Who am I? You don't need to know, I won't harm you. Haha, after all these years, I finally found someone with a soul strong enough. What luck! Hee, I should thank you for your offerings over the past 3 years, otherwise I would probably still be sleeping. Offerings? Xiao Yan blinked his eyes in confusion. After a moment, his face darkened and chilling words jumped out of his teeth with difficulty. My dochi disappearing, you did that? Hee, I had to do that, kid, don't be mad at me. UF*CKR. The normally calm and composed Xiao Yan became enraged like a lunatic. His small face was filled with savagery, and without caring that the ring was the only memento of his mother, he ripped the ring off of his finger and flung it over the cliff with all of his might. As the ring left his hand, Xiao Yan's mind finally cleared. Hurriedly he tried to catch the flying ring, but the ring had already passed cliff, free-falling down the mountain. Staring at the ring disappearing into the mist, Xiao Yan was stunned for a long time. Finally, his face lost its savagery and calmed. He smacked his forehead, upset, idiot, that was too reckless, too reckless. To realize that the culprit of his humiliation for the past 3 years was the ring he always wore, it was unsurprising that Xiao Yan reacted so violently. After sitting at the edge of the cliff for a long time, Xiao Yan helplessly shook his head. Standing up, he prepared to go back, but his eyes widened and his fingers shakily pointed at the thing in front of him. In front of Xiao Yan was the pitch-black ring, floating in the sky. But the thing that surprised Xiao Yan the most was the transparent wizened figure above the ring. Hee, kid, you don't need to be so mad, do you? I only took 3 years of your dochi. The transparent elder smiled at the stunned Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan's mouth twitched and he pushing down his anger. He said, Geezer, since you were hiding within the ring, then you should know how much pain you've caused me since you took my dochi, right? But with these 3 years of humiliations, you've matured, right? Do you think that 3 years ago you would have had this kind of tolerance and mindset? Xiao Yan furrowed his brows, but his emotions started to calm down. After the rage, a hint of happiness took over Xiao Yan. Since he knew why his dochi was disappearing, his talent had returned. Thinking about the chance to take off the title of crippled that countless others had put on him, Xiao Yan felt as if he had been reborn. The detestable elder in front him didn't look as annoying as before. Some things, after they disappear, would make one start appreciating their value. After losing and regaining it, one treasures it more. Lightly twisting his wrist, Xiao Yan let out a long breath and said, even though I don't know who you are, I would like to know if you plan on staying in the ring to steal my dochi. If that's the case, then I would ask for you to find a new owner. I can't afford to keep on raising you. Hee, other people don't have as strong of soul perception as you. The elder stroked his beard. Since I already chose to appear, then before you give me permission I won't take your dochi. Xiao Yan rolled his eyes and sneered without saying anything. He had already decided, regardless of anything the elder says, he would not keep that ring by his side. Kid, do you want to become strong? Do you want to be respected by others? Even though Xiao Yan had already decided to not have anything more to do with the elder, his heart started beating rapidly when he heard those words. I already know why my dochi was disappearing, and with my talent, why do I need you to become strong? Letting out a small breath, Xiao Yan smoothly said. He knew that there were no free lunches in this world. To owe a mysterious person a favor isn't a smart move. Kid, even though your talent is pretty good, you should know that you're already 15 but your dochi is only at 3 duan. I think that I heard that your adult ceremony is next year, right? Do you think that within a year, using your talent and hard work you can get to 7 duan chi? In addition, the girl who you promised to fight 3 years from now doesn't have shabby talent either. You want to catch up and surpass her. It's not going to be easy. The elder's face that was full of wrinkles blossomed like a chrysanthemum. If you didn't take my do chi, then do you think that any of this would have happened? You old f***cur. After his biggest weakness was exposed, Xiao Yan's face darkened once again and he started to curse. After cursing, Xiao Yan felt a hint of despair. In his current situation, no matter how much he cursed, there would be no effect. The practice of do chi required a strong foundation. Back when he was 4, it took him 6 years to get to 9 duan do chi. Even with his talent, getting to 7 duan chi in just 1 year was hopeless. Sighing depressedly, Xiao Yan glanced at the pretentious elder. The edge of his mouth curled and he asked, "Do you have a solution?" "Maybe." The elder vaguely replied. "If you help me to get to 7 duan chi in just 1 year, then I'll forgive you for taking my do chi for 3 years. How's that?" Xiao Yan probingly asked. Hee, wishful thinking kid. If you can't help me, then why should I keep you, someone useless, by my side? You should find another unfortunate person. Xiao Yan knew that the transparent elder couldn't randomly take do chi from other people, so he knew that he had some leverage in the negotiations. You're not even remotely close to a 15-year-old young man. Looks like these 3 years really helped you grow a lot. Did my plan backfire? Looking at the clever Xiao Yan, the elder paused and then dumbfoundedly shook his head. Xiao Yan shrugged his shoulders and lightly said, "If you want me to keep you by my side, then you should at least have some sincerity, right?" What a sharp-mouthed kid. All right, after all, I do need your help." Without another choice, the elder nodded and slowly came to the ground. After examining Xiao Yan for a while, a treacherous smile spread across his face. But as soon as it appeared, it left and the elder pondered for a moment before unwilling asking, "Do you want to become an alchemist?"